Hi everyone, it's Michael and welcome to the June 2018 Orchid Collection Update. I can't believe this is the only video that I have done this month, but at the very least I will always give you one monthly recap of everything that's going on with my orchids or any significant changes that I think are noteworthy. It has been another insane month. I just came back from San Francisco after just coming back from Missouri, after just coming back from Seattle. It's an ongoing process and next month is looking like it's going to be really insane too. So, you know, I just want to say thank you to you guys. When I did my last monthly update, I was kind of apologizing for, you know, not being as present, and you guys were so encouraging and wonderful and understanding, so thank you for that. I always have this fear that you guys are going to be like, well, we hate you and you're not giving us what we want, but I appreciate everyone being so understanding because I'm trying to find a balance. You know, I'm so seldom home and I want to see my husband. So let's talk through what's different from what I was doing in May. So first of all, I resumed using my tap water. I know it stresses me out too, but I really want to see how this is going to go. So obviously the TDS here is way too high, but I am increasing the frequency with which I'm flushing. So rather than doing it once a month, I'm doing it now once every 2 weeks, once again, to see if that helps. Because one of the things I realized is when I first transitioned my orchids to semi-hydro, I always see a little bit of white near the drainage holes. And that is in part mineral buildup, and it's also in part mold. It's white mold. And it's the two things appear simultaneously because obviously the old root system is rotting out, which is creating mold, but also the root systems aren't able to process and metabolize nutrients because they are like, what the hell is going on, and will eventually rot away and die. So I'm starting to see that white resolve, and it's happening without using distilled water as my flushing agent. So I'm just gonna continue to watch this and see what happens. The only ones that I'm not doing that for are my seedlings because those are so sensitive. But that being said, I am not using my zero water anymore. I've been promising you a review and I promise I will get it to you. It's just not gonna happen today. It's just not the right fit for my orchids. Now, some of these are almost done adapting, which you will see. We are about 3 months in from the time that I first got here and repotted all of my plants. So some of them are almost through their entire adaptation, and it looks almost identical to their initial transition to semi-hydroponics, which again is something that I didn't anticipate, but they are starting to do really well. There are some new additions to my collection, so we will welcome number 51 to my collection. It's actually 5 of them, but they are my wedding, I don't know, my white wedding Phalaenopsis, I guess that's what we'll call them. So it's a little bit weird, but my husband and I just had our wedding reception. So we did things kind of unconventionally. We did a small courthouse ceremony with just immediate family. We did our honeymoon a long time after that, and now we're doing our reception a long time after that. So we've been kind of taking it little by little as time has permitted because we're both so busy. So his family surprised me because I literally had nothing to do with any of the planning. God bless them. I was like, you know, I'm too busy. I can't think about any of this. I'm not going to be good with this. So you can imagine my delight and surprise when I came into the reception venue and saw that there was beautiful big white Phalaenopsis orchids on every single table. So that is number 51. Welcome the 5 of them to my collection. I've just repotted them and we'll check in on their progress momentarily. I will forego showing you where everything is located spatially, in part because I think it doesn't matter at this moment. I think everything needs more light, so I'm trying to reconfigure where everything will go. But also because I don't really want to show you the apartment yet. We are compulsive about how we decorate, and we're pretty intense about what things look like when they're all together, and it's just not there yet, so I don't want you to see. And you will see it when I do the full apartment tour. Last thing I wanted to tell you is the fruit flies are gone. That's just the natural way that things happen when you are transitioning your plants to semi-hydro. There's a lot of rot as there's root die-off, and then of course the fruit flies come and then they vanish as soon as the root rot starts to kind of subside. So now they're gone and I couldn't be more thrilled about it because yuck, I hate that. So without further lead in, let's go ahead and talk through all of the plants that something interesting is happening with. All right, guys, so let's jump in with number 1. Number 1 is doing so impressively well. It's so strange. Look how much bigger that leaf is than its previous growths. It's gotten significantly larger, which is wonderful. But it's also putting out a beautiful aerial root here. If I take you down on the bottom, the root system is just continuing to expand and branch, which makes me super pleased. And the keiki, the basal keiki that's growing is just trucking right along. That's about to be a fully realized plant. So I'm just gonna watch how that develops. Now we're gonna jump from number 1 all the way to number 7. This is my Dendrobium nobile to my kids. And once again, you guys, it's in bloom. It just like, I don't understand it. It bloomed back in February. It bloomed right when we got here with all of the buds that were developing, and then it put out 2 new ones. So, and it's like continuing to grow up here. I'll explain why this happened. That is withdrawing some energy, but that was totally my fault, and I'll explain why. But this Dendrobium is so hardy and so, it's just a happy guy. It just like wants to be in bloom, and I'm not mad about that. I've been enjoying its blooms now for almost 5 consecutive months. So that's kind of crazy. Now I will say the root system doesn't look as viable as I thought it was, but now it is branching off. Like you can see coming off of the old growths are all these new little ones. So it looked for a while like we were gonna lose the entire root system, but I think it was just thinking about what to do, and what it's doing is putting out new roots through its old system. Now what you're seeing up here will be an ongoing theme for this video. When Justin and I were at our wedding reception, we made a really, really big oversight, and it's a big lesson to learn. But we decided, you know what, we're gonna save energy, we're not here, we're just gonna turn off the AC, and for whatever reason, I didn't think about how much that would impact the evaporation rates of the water reservoirs. So what happened for a lot of my plants is the water reservoirs completely dried up, and especially the ones that are exposed to direct sun burned just because they didn't have hydration content. It happened to a lot of the orchids. So that was a really dumb oversight. I will not turn off the AC when I go on vacation, or at least I won't turn it off, I'll just turn it way down. But it really did have a pretty significant impact on the plants, so lesson learned. Now we're gonna jump from 7 to 8. This is my Banfieldara Mystic Maze, and this guy I feel like he just finished blooming, and then look at how big his new growth is already. So it's pretty normal for these old growths to die off like this, so I'm not concerned about that at all. So this one I thought was gonna be much more difficult to cultivate, but it is a pretty reliable little grower. Now on to number 9. This is the Keiki that I took from my mom forever ago, burned the crap out of with Fizan, thought for sure it was gonna die in the transition here, and you know what? The darn thing just has a will of its own. It put out an entirely brand new leaf, which is so cute and so exciting. But then look what's happening. This is happening with a lot of my plants here, and I don't know if it's the California climate that encourages it, but that new root is actually growing out of an old dead root tip. So it's just bursting out of its old root tips and creating new growth. I'm not sure how things are gonna unfold from here, but this is a really positive sign of progress. Now this part breaks my heart, but I'm actually oddly happy about it because for once in my life, I feel like I understand why my frags do what they do. So again, in that instance where we turned off the AC, this drank down its water reservoir probably within about a day, day and a half, whereas I'm used to it taking about 5 days. These do not want to be dry. They always want to have access to water. And so I was astounded at how quickly it killed off a lot of its growths. And I should have shown you before I trimmed it, but I trimmed back all the dead leaves, but it blackened a lot of the tips. It killed off almost one entire growth. So it killed from the old growth, which is unsurprising. But now, again, it's just lesson learned. And I'm pleased because I feel like these guys want to get flushed regularly. They would never want to lose access to water. They don't want to be overly fertilized. I'm starting to get into the groove of frags. Now, that being said, I do feel like these teachable moments that I'm picking up as I go on are at the expense of the ones that I currently have. But should I ever explore more frags, I feel much better equipped to deal with them. So that is number 13. You guys, I am losing my mind over this one. So this is my Dapper Dots Nicolasa Tavares Catasetum, and look how damn big it is. Especially if you go back and watch last month's orchid collection update. You guys, it has grown such an incredible amount in such a short period of time. It really, really illustrates what voracious feeders and growers Catasetum types can be. So I just couldn't be more pleased with this. I'm keeping a close eye to make sure it's not burning, but the slow release fertilizer appears to be going well at the concentration I've given it. Now, moving on, we're gonna jump over to 17. Now, 17 was also a victim of the whole turning off the AC debacle. I actually trimmed back the leaf, but it got really, really badly sunburned because there was no moisture content to pull from. And this is an Ascocenda, you guys. This is a Vandaceous type, so they love sunshine. Just in the absence of water, it can be very, very damaging. So in the same way that my mom's Keiki is starting to burst through its old root, that's what's happening here on every single root tip. You guys, it's so, so strange. But you can see, I don't know if you can actually, there's a very clear dividing line. It's right here where the old root had stopped growing and then started its new growth. And it's happening all over the plant. Like it's happening there, it's happening inside the container. It's just doing the strangest things. So I don't know what it is about the California climate that's making my plants do this, but it's definitely something I've never seen before. Now, we're gonna move on to a number 18, which makes me actually very sad. This is my Zygopetalum. I don't know how to feel about this. This one has been struggling and dropping leaf after leaf after leaf since we got here, and it was on such a good roll. And you can see, look how many new roots it had put out, look how many new growths it had put out. It was doing really well, and then as soon as I moved here, it just really, really suffered. But as much as I was ready to say, okay, well, this one is on its way out, it starts to do, where is it? It starts to do the damnedest thing. Okay, here we are. It's putting out a new growth through where the old new growth was growing and died. So it's I just don't understand what's happening here. California is making all of my plants just want to like have zombie roots. The zombie roots are dead and then they're not. It's so weird. Now we're gonna move on to my Maxillaria tenafolia. The entire time it was in Colorado, it did nothing for me. And suddenly here, it's just very, very happy. It is doing all sorts of things. So actually I'll take you into the container first. Look at the base of the plant. There are tons of new growths coming out every which way. And that makes me super, super happy. Do you even see this really tall one that's coming out right next to the bulb? So that's really wonderful and special. But also look at the root system. The root system never did this when we were in Denver, but it is just getting extremely comfortable in this container and putting out tons and tons of roots. All of them have nice bright green root tips and it's just kind of filling the space. So I think good things are coming for this one. I don't even know what that will look like because this plant has done nothing for so long. Jumping back in with number 27, this is my Phragmipedium Memoria Maritza Rolando, and this one was also really intensely impacted by the whole debacle with not turning off the AC, you guys. It just died back so fast, and I clipped it and it's still, you know, I think it's still resenting me for the damage and pouting a little bit. But I actually thought it had crown rot for a second because it started to die off in the center as well, but now it's growing back out and it's not as much of a problem as I thought it was going to be. I thought this was for sure dead from the inside. But again, I'm learning, I understand what caused it. I feel like I have a keen grasp about why this is happening, which makes me feel much better about it. But again, I don't know if it is too late for this plant. But as you will find out later in this video, sometimes I don't know when it's too late for a plant because you're going to lose your mind when you see what's happening. So we'll move on to number 28. You guys, every time I show you this, the takeaway is, wow, this plant is a monster, it's a beast. No lie, I can't even keep up with this plant's growth. Look at its roots. Holy cannoli. It's just going apeshit all the time. And I just sized this up from a much smaller container, and look how quickly it has managed to just fill the container with it's just reaching everywhere. This will not be stopped, this will not be tamed. It is just such a beast of a plant, and it has so many new growths coming in, especially on the back. But you can see some of them are starting to open up, but in there, everything is covered in sap. It's just so happy. Happy and Sappy, that's your name. No, it's not. But this one is just doing really, really well, so I'm pleased to see this continue to develop. I will probably almost certainly be splitting this very, very soon. I want to see how it impacts the blooms. I want to see if I get more than 2 or 3 blooms by leaving it this big and almost taking it to species size. But once I've assessed that, I'm going to divide it. So that's coming soon. So now we're gonna jump from 28 on to number 33. This is my Dendrobium tangerinum. I was so afraid I was gonna lose this guy because it lost cane after cane after cane because the root system just didn't adapt well and it didn't put anything out. But finally, it put out this new baby guy here, and then that new baby guy gave birth to this little guy, and the second little guy is the one that's putting out all of the brand new roots. So it is starting to really venture into the container. It's gaining momentum and putting out a second, or I guess a third cane. And so I'm very, very excited to watch this one develop. It's saving itself, and that makes me so happy. So now we're gonna jump to number 35. You guys, this is my Burgiara Nelly Eiler, and I am beginning to suspect it just doesn't like California. What's happening with this guy and with my Miltoniopsis is they both seem to resent the change. They do not like it being warmer here. I'm trying to keep them close to a lot of moving air, next to a lot of humidity and cooler temperatures. For example, I have both this and the Miltoniopsis sitting next to each other right by where the cool air comes out to cool the apartment. It's not directly next to it, but it's cool enough to impact it and give it a drop in temperature. But it is just dropping leaf after leaf after leaf. I haven't seen it put out any new roots. And it's really unfortunate because this did incredibly and surprisingly well for me when I was in Colorado, but I just can't seem to cultivate an environment that this is going to appreciate here. So we'll see how this evolves, but I'm a little worried about this guy. So now let's jump to 36. I can't tell you how pleased I am because this guy did nothing for the longest time. You may remember when I first got this, it was a birthday gift from my friend Aria. It had many, many pseudobulbs, but 2 of those pseudobulbs were black. The other one started to die off. I had to divide it and divide it and divide it. And I thought, okay, well, for sure it's a goner. It's just not going to put out a new growth. And then this little baby appeared and started to really get momentum just recently. And that makes me super, super happy. I'm waiting till the growth itself is about 3 to 4 inches before I resume watering. I know that the root system is around 2 inches because that's when I repotted it and put all of the slow release fertilizer. If you haven't seen my video on how I did that, I will link it below. But it's doing really well. And I did want to show you, hold on. So out of curiosity, I saved the old bulb that this one was divided from, and here it is. And you can see it's like obviously not doing well, it's rotting. I've kept it separate for that reason. But I just want to show you what intense wills to survive orchids have, because look what's happening at the base of it. It is trying to put out a brand new growth. And it is just doing its best to give itself a fighting chance to survive by putting out a new growth. Now, I don't know what's going to become of this, but I am going to hold on to it and watch it just because I think it's kind of fascinating. But its division over here seems to be doing just great. Now we're going to go to number 39. This is my Zygonesia cynosure bluebirds. And just like my Zygopetalum, guys, this one is just not happy. The leaves are just one by one rotting off and falling away. There is a beautiful new growth happening over here, but the last, and you can kind of see it, it's already getting blackened leaf tips, which is so strange because the last few new growths that have come up have one day just started to rot, just out of nowhere. I'm not watering from overhead. It is not a matter of brown rot that I'm causing by how I'm watering. I definitely water directly into the medium around it, so there's no reason it should be happening. I just don't know if how improperly I shipped these impacted it so much that it's just not able to bounce back. But again, keeping my eye on it, because sometimes there are resurrection stories as it pertains to orchids. So I'll link the video below, but you may remember when I declared number 42 in my collection, my Spathoglottis plicata, completely dead. Justin insisted to me that he could still feel life inside of the plant. He insisted to me that everything was gonna be okay. So I truly, just to humor him and get him off my back, I kept this plant. I was ready to throw it away. And now look at it go. So this is the one, and that's why I thought it was gonna die. It had a new growth, but everything was already starting to blacken and die off. And I was like, okay, well, that's just the final stage. And since then, it has put out 3 more new growths, and look at them just growing and growing and getting bigger and bigger. It is 100% a resurrection, and it is so impressive and so beautiful. And even the root system is starting to expand within the container. And I'll show you if I can find it. Like, look at that furry little root. It's so happy. So this guy has really just completely shattered my expectations, and I'm really pleased about it. So it's instances like this that really force me to reevaluate my perspective on giving up on orchids, because even though some of these seem like they're beyond hope, my Nellie Eiler, for example, I'm feeling really down about that, and I don't know how I can impact the outcome. But it could be like this, where I just think it's dead, and then one day it's not. So hopefully continuing in that tradition will be number 45. This is my Lycaste Ballier. This one is the one that I put fertilizer solution, slow release fertilizer into. I treated it kind of like I've been treating my Catasetums, and it did not like it, not one little bit. It did have 2 other bulbs, which rotted, and it did have 1 brand new growth, which died. I think the new growth was doing okay until, of course, the air conditioning debacle, and when I came back, it had just blackened and fallen off altogether. So I don't know what will become of this plant, but I'm cautiously optimistic that it can really invest in its survival. We'll see. Now, Another extent, God, that's just the theme of today, I guess. Resilience in plants. So you guys may remember how concerned I was about this. This is my Cymbidium Murasaki sinense, and when I got it here, it dropped leaf after leaf after leaf. One of the bulbs rotted, I had to divide it. I was super, super unhappy about it. It only had 2 leaves left, and I was like, well, it's just gonna die, that's it. And now, look what's happening. Do you guys see right by my finger? I'll take you in closer. It has a brand new growth coming in out of nowhere. And look how desiccated the pseudobulbs are. They just look so sad, but this one is giving all of its energy to invest in this guy, which will put down some new roots and potentially save the entire plant. Just like my Dendrobium tangerinum number 33. I think that this guy is going to see a trajectory very, very similar to what this guy is doing right now. So that's at least what I'm hoping for. So on to number 50. This is my Miltoniopsis, and similar to the Nellie Eiler, it just has been losing leaf after leaf after leaf. However, this one is still plump and looks very healthy, even the bulbs. I bought it recently, and I bought it specifically because it had this beautiful new growth coming in right here. So the hope is that this guy will put down roots that are perfectly adapted to semi-hydroponics and save the rest of it, but it is losing a significant amount of leaves, so I'm keeping my eye on this guy. Now on to number 50. This is my Mediocalcar. This is, I don't know how this is doing. I've never dealt with an orchid like this before, you guys. Look at all these aerial roots. They just look like curly hairs to me. But you can see when I take you in, each of these little nuggets is actually a pseudobulb. So I just don't know. They all look kind of desiccated and shriveled. They look like they're struggling, which is to be expected when you adapt it to semi-hydro. I just don't know. I don't know what this plant is supposed to look like. I don't know what its journey and cycle or growth pattern looks like. So this is all very scary because it's such an unfamiliar type of plant, but I'm just giving it as much water. It does not like to dry out, so obviously this was undoubtedly impacted from the air conditioning debacle, but I'm just keeping an eye on this one as well. Now I will show you, this is number 51, all 5 of them. When I come up underneath them, you can see each of them are starting to lose their bottom leaves. It's to be expected. It's a part of the 4-month adaptation that I outlined. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it below. But these are just big white Phalaenopsis. The roots don't appear to have started to rot yet, but I know that they will, and when they do, I'll probably see some more fruit flies. But they're just doing their thing for now, so I'm hoping that each of these has a smooth transition. So that's pretty much it, you guys. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your time with me. If you have any questions, concerns, or feedback, go ahead and leave it in the comments section below. Don't forget to click subscribe, and have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye, guys.